I physically punished my daughter and she died.
Your daughter has died?
I killed my daughter. I killed my
Who
daughter.
killed your daughter? Who killed
It's
your daughter?
me,
Okay.
the father.
On August 10th, 2023, a grim discovery was made in an abandoned house in Woking, Surrey, England. Police uncovered the lifeless body of 10-year-old Sara Sharif, meticulously wrapped and left on a worn-out mattress. The scene was a silent testament to her unimaginable suffering. Visible bruises, burns, and clear signs of prolonged abuse. Next to her lay a chilling note from her father, Irfan Sharif, confessing, "It's me, Irfan Sharif, who killed my daughter by beating her." He continued, "I swear to God that my intention was not to kill her, but I lost control. I am running away because I am scared, but I promise that I will hand over myself and take punishment." His final, haunting words, "Love you, Sarah," served as a twisted farewell, juxtaposing love with cruelty and neglect. This heartbreaking discovery marked the beginning of a harrowing journey, unveiling layers of abuse, deceit, and tragedy that shook the community to its core. If Sarah's story resonates with you and you want to help raise awareness, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if you noticed the warning signs of abuse in someone you care about? Share your thoughts and experiences with us. We want to hear from you. The life of Irfan Sharif, born in 1982 in Jhelum, Pakistan, took a dark and tragic turn, culminating in the death of his 10-year-old daughter, Sara Sharif, and his subsequent arrest for murder. This is the story of a life marked by ambition, troubled relationships, escalating violence, and ultimately, devastating loss. Irfan Sharif, born in 1982 in Jhelum, Pakistan, was known for being good in his studies. Jhelum, a city where many families have members settled in the UK, is filled with young men whose main goal is to reach the UK by any means possible. The dream of settling in the UK at any cost drives many of them, some legally through student visas, and others through dangerous routes like donkeys, illegal and perilous ways to enter Europe. Irfan was among the lucky few to secure a legal UK student visa, a feat that brought immense pride and joy to his parents. In 2000, at the age of 18, he embarked on a journey to the UK, marking the beginning of a new chapter, filled with both promise and unforeseen challenges. Life in the UK was a stark contrast to his upbringing in Jhelum. He transitioned from the familiar landscapes of his homeland to the bustling streets of Woking, Surrey, a town southwest of London known for its diverse community. Irfan had secured admission to a not very well-known college, but that did not matter. Like many others, Irfan was not in the UK primarily for studies. He was there to work and generate a good income to support his family back home. His dream was to settle in the UK permanently and eventually gain British citizenship. Since his arrival, Irfan began trying to find local girls for marriage, hoping to secure a permanent status through this route. He even explored the possibility of a paper marriage, a contract marriage arranged solely for the purpose of obtaining nationality, which typically required a significant payment. However, it was not as easy as he initially thought. Western citizens had grown wary of immigrants using marriage as a shortcut to permanent residency, making it difficult to find someone willing to agree to such an arrangement. Despite these challenges, Irfan remained determined. He eventually found work as a taxi driver, a common occupation for immigrants seeking flexible employment. This allowed him to navigate the complexities of a new culture and build a life for himself in a foreign land, while continuing his pursuit of citizenship through any means possible. In 2009, Irfan, then 27, met Olga Sharif online. Olga, originally from Poland, had also immigrated to the UK at a young age. For Irfan, this was a golden opportunity. Olga was European, alone, and new to the UK, and she needed support in navigating life there. Getting settled in the UK was not easy for her either, as it was both challenging and expensive. Irfan saw this as his chance to not only stay in the UK but also to potentially secure permanent residency. He assured Olga that he would take care of her, offering her stability in an unfamiliar environment. Irfan expressed genuine affection, showing her kindness and promising her a good future. Olga was young and beautiful, and Irfan, displaying what seemed like sincere love, convinced her that marriage was the right path for both of them. Their online connection quickly blossomed into a relationship, and within months, they were married. Everything went well for the couple, and they were genuinely happy with each other. In 2010, the birth of their first baby boy brought even more joy to their lives, strengthening their bond and making them look forward to a promising future together. However, the initial promise of their union soon gave way to a turbulent reality. Allegations of domestic abuse surfaced early in their marriage. Irfan was accused of physical violence and coercive control, often resorting to threats and intimidation to maintain dominance over Olga. He restricted her access to finances and communication, taking complete control of her bank cards, ensuring that she had no financial independence. He went as far as to cut her off from friends and family, isolating her from any support systems that could have provided her solace. Olga accused Irfan of gambling heavily. He would spend long nights gambling, often losing significant amounts of money, which led to growing financial instability in their household. The debts began piling up, and the pressure to manage expenses and rising debt added further strain to their already fragile relationship. As financial troubles escalated, so did the conflicts. Irfan's frustration with their deteriorating financial situation often turned into violent outbursts, leaving Olga in constant fear. Despite these troubles, Olga tried to hold the family together for the sake of their son, but the marriage quickly deteriorated into a bitter battleground of accusations, recriminations, and escalating conflict. The home became an environment of fear, resentment, and mistrust. The atmosphere grew increasingly toxic, with arguments becoming a daily routine, each one more intense and damaging than the last. On January 11, 2013, they welcomed the birth of their daughter, Sara, a beautiful but unlucky girl, born into an increasingly fractured family environment. Olga hoped that the birth of their daughter might bring some stability and healing, but instead, it only added more pressure. The joy of welcoming a new child was overshadowed by the stress and hostility that had already engulfed their household. The once hopeful promises of their marriage had now turned into a desperate struggle for survival, with little respite from the ongoing turmoil. Around this time, Irfan met a new woman, Baynash, a young woman in her 20s with her own history of vulnerability, having been a victim of honor-based abuse. Their meeting was contentious, with varying accounts of how they first encountered each other. Some suggested they met in Irfan's taxi, while others believed a local shopkeeper had introduced them. Regardless of how they met, their relationship developed quickly. Baynash, alone and in need of support, became close to Irfan, who offered her a sense of security. It wasn't long before Irfan and Baynash began discussing their future together. Irfan saw Baynash as a new opportunity to escape the turmoil of his marriage with Olga. They began planning ways to get rid of Olga, believing that her removal would clear the path for them to marry and take custody of the children. Irfan seemed blind to the needs and well-being of his children, focusing solely on his desire to be with Baynash and secure a fresh start. Despite the fragile state of his family, Irfan's mind was clouded by his ambition to control his future, disregarding the devastating impact his actions would have on everyone involved. Following their separation, Irfan married Baynash Batul in 2017. Baynash, who had her own vulnerabilities due to her history of honor-based abuse, offered Irfan the fresh start he desired. Together, they went on to have 3 children of their own, attempting to present a picture of a stable family environment. However, beneath the surface, old habits remained, and Baynash's involvement was far from passive. She played an active role in Irfan's attempts to regain custody of his older children. The custody battle that ensued was acrimonious, with both parents accusing each other of abuse and unfit parenting. Olga argued that Irfan's violent tendencies and coercive control made him unfit to care for the children, while Irfan painted Olga as unstable and incapable. The legal proceedings dragged on, marked by intense scrutiny from social services, who expressed serious concerns about Irfan's past behavior. Despite these concerns, Irfan was ultimately granted custody of Sara and her brother in 2019. A major factor in this decision was Bainash Batul, who presented herself as a stable partner who could provide a nurturing environment for the children. Bainash assured social services that the children would be well cared for and that their household was now stable. Her influence and willingness to present a united front with Irfan played a crucial role in convincing the authorities that the children would be better off with their father. The decision, however, was highly controversial. Many questioned how Irfan, with his documented history of violence, coercion, and gambling, could be deemed suitable for custody. This marked the beginning of a new and deeply troubled chapter in the lives of Sara and her brother, who would now be subjected to the challenges of living under Irfan and Bainash's care. A situation fraught with tension, control, and further instability. Sara Sharif reportedly endured a prolonged period of abuse at home. Prosecutors described this as a campaign of abuse that lasted for over 2 years, involving physical violence and neglect. Evidence suggests she was subjected to beatings with objects such as a belt buckle, a metal pole, and even a cricket bat, leaving her with visible injuries that included bruises, burns, and fractures. The abuse was severe and relentless, creating an environment of constant fear and pain for Sara. Prolonged series of assaults over time, often occurring without any provocation. These brutal beatings left Sara with deep physical and emotional scars, while her cries for help went largely unheard due to her isolation from those who could intervene. The psychological impact of the abuse was significant. Sara's stepmother, Bainash Batul, often dismissed her behavior as being naughty, and even went as far as attributing her actions to supernatural influences, claiming that Sara had a jinn inside her. This framing of Sara's behavior served as a twisted justification for the abusive punishments she received, allowing the adults around her to rationalize their actions. Bainash used these claims to portray Sara as difficult and unruly, which she suggested could only be controlled through severe disciplinary measures. Messages exchanged between Batul and her sister revealed that Irfan Sharif, Sara's father, exhibited violent tendencies and frequently punished Sara harshly for even the most minor misbehaviors. These accounts included all-night punishments such as making Sara do sit-ups continuously until she was physically exhausted, along with physical beatings. Such prolonged punishments reflected a calculated attempt to break Sara's spirit and assert control over her, demonstrating the deeply ingrained nature of the abuse. Sara's injuries were often concealed from the outside world. She reportedly wore a hijab to hide visible signs of abuse, including bruises on her face and neck while attending school. The hijab, traditionally worn for modesty, was used as a means to disguise her suffering, preventing teachers and peers from noticing the signs of her trauma. The effort to keep Sara's injuries hidden was part of a broader pattern of controlling her interactions and limiting the risk of intervention. In April 2023, Irfan Sharif took another significant step in isolating Sara. He informed Sara's school that she would no longer attend classes and would instead be homeschooled. This decision effectively cut Sara off from the teachers and peers who might have noticed her injuries or reported concerns about her well-being. It appears that this move was part of a broader strategy to prevent any outside intervention, keeping Sara trapped in an environment where she had no means of escape or support. Neighbors reported hearing distressing sounds coming from the family home, including screams and the unmistakable sound of smacking, which suggested ongoing violence within the household. Despite these warning signs, no immediate action was taken, and Sara continued to endure the relentless abuse. The neighbors' accounts painted a picture of a household where violence was a regular occurrence, yet fear and a lack of clear evidence prevented anyone from stepping in to help. Sara's cries, though heard by those nearby, were ultimately ignored, leaving her to face the abuse alone. On August 8, 2023, the tragic and brutal end of young Sara's life came to pass. Prosecutors indicated that she had suffered significant injuries for several weeks leading up to her death, including signs of blunt force trauma and scalding from hot water. The details of her suffering paint a chilling picture of the abuse that she endured in her own home, a place that should have offered safety and love. A day after Sara's death, on August 9, 2023, Irfan Sharif, her father, made arrangements to flee the UK with his family.
Welcome to Southall Travel. My name is Jatin. How may I help?
Hi there, I'd like to know about ticket prices to Pakistan.
Okay. Your travel dates, please.
Early as possible tomorrow.
And return.
Single.
So here, ma'am, you have an option with Oman Air tomorrow night from Heathrow via Muscat to Islamabad.
What time?
8:50 at night tomorrow night.
Any flight available in the morning?
Is there anything in the morning?
2 minutes waiting there, and then you reach the next day morning at 5:35.
Oh, wait.
How long does it say?
5 hours and 50 minutes.
Is there anything shorter?
This act alone speaks volumes about the kind of father he was. How could he leave his daughter's lifeless body behind, lying cold and alone, while he busied himself arranging plane tickets to escape the consequences? CCTV footage captured Irfan, along with Bainash and other family members, arriving at Heathrow Airport. Their expressions were unreadable, almost detached, as they moved through the airport with a chilling calmness. They were preparing to board a flight to Pakistan, fleeing without even a hint of remorse or any acknowledgement of the tragedy they were leaving behind. The rush to leave was not just about escaping the authorities. It was about escaping the truth of what they had done. Irfan did not pause to mourn Sara or reflect on her short life, which had ended so brutally at his own hands. He acted with cold calculation, leaving behind a home full of dark secrets and a silence where Sara's laughter once filled the air. The very fact that he could arrange tickets, gather his family, and head to the airport while his daughter's body lay hidden at home reveals a chilling lack of humanity. It was as though he could compartmentalize his emotions, treating the death of his child as an inconvenience to be left behind while he sought freedom. It was not the behavior of a grieving father, but of a man desperate to evade justice, indifferent to the life he had extinguished. This heartless flight from responsibility left behind a haunting emptiness in the family home, a silence that spoke louder than words. There was no grieving, no remorse, no respect for the life lost. The rush to flee was a stark contrast to the love and care that Sara should have received. Instead of staying to face what he had done, Irfan chose to run, proving that his sense of fatherhood had been corrupted by his own selfishness and cowardice. After arriving in Pakistan, Sara Sharif made a distressing 999 call to police in the UK at around 2:47 a.m. on August 10th. His voice, calm yet filled with the weight of his actions, described how he had legally punished Sara for being naughty. The phrase legally punished echoed hollowly as he tried to justify the unjustifiable. He admitted to beating her excessively, yet there was no hint of true remorse, only a rationalization of the violence. It was as if he could not comprehend the gravity of what he had done. His daughter was gone, and he seemed lost in his own justifications. On August 10th, 2023, police were dispatched to the family home in Woking, Surrey, shortly after receiving Irfan's emergency call. They found Sara's small, lifeless body concealed under a blanket in a bunk bed. The scene was heartbreakingly silent. Her body, wrapped as if someone had tried to hide the monstrous truth, lay motionless, bearing the evidence of her suffering. Next to her was a handwritten note from Irfan, a final attempt to explain his heinous actions. The note found next to Sara's body was chilling in its simplicity and brutality. In it, Sara Sharif confessed openly to his actions. He wrote, "It's me, Sara Sharif, who killed my daughter by beating." The bluntness of this admission was striking, a cold acknowledgement of his role in her death. He went on to write, "I swear to God that my intention was not to kill her, but I lost it." It was an attempt to lessen the horror of what he had done, as if the loss of control could justify the taking of an innocent life. This statement laid bare his inability to manage his own rage, a rage that had destroyed his daughter's life. Another line in the note read, "I am running away because I am scared, but I promise that I will hand over myself and take punishment." This admission of fear was telling. He was not only scared of the consequences, but also of facing the monstrous reflection of his actions. His intention to evade immediate justice showed his cowardice, even as he promised to eventually surrender. Perhaps the most heartbreaking line was, "Love you, Sara." These words, written by the very hand that had caused her death, added an element of tragic irony. It seemed grotesquely out of place, an empty phrase meant to express love where there had only been cruelty and neglect. It served as a stark reminder of how twisted his perception of love had become. Finally, Irfan requested, "My daughter is Muslim. Can you bury her like Muslim may be? I will be back before you finish the post-mortem." This plea for a proper burial highlighted his desire for cultural and religious observances, even though he had failed to honor the most fundamental aspect of fatherhood, protecting his child. His concern for her burial rites was tragically misplaced, considering the brutality she had endured under his care. The note became a pivotal piece of evidence in the ongoing trial, offering a disturbing insight into Irfan's mindset. It exposed a man who, even in the face of his daughter's death, sought to rationalize his actions, portraying himself as both punisher and victim. The contradictions in his words, the declarations of love juxtaposed with the cold recounting of violence, provided a haunting glimpse into the deeply flawed and troubled mind that had led to Sara's tragic death. The post-mortem examination of Sara's body painted a harrowing picture of prolonged abuse and suffering. It was evident that she had endured multiple injuries over an extended period, pointing directly to a systematic campaign of physical violence. The examination revealed extensive bruising across her body, severe burns, broken bones, and signs that she had been restrained. The signs of restraint indicated that Sara had been forcibly held down or tied, preventing her from escaping the abuse she was subjected to. The detailed evidence presented in court exposed the full brutality of the abuse. Sara had suffered 11 fractures to her spine. These injuries were the result of repeated blunt force trauma that was inflicted with significant force. Each fracture was a testament to the severity of the violence she endured, demonstrating the immense and sustained pain she must have felt. Additionally, there were fractures to her collarbone and ribs, further illustrating the constant brutality she faced. The post-mortem findings also highlighted signs of scalding from hot water, leaving patches of her skin badly burned, indicating deliberate acts intended to cause maximum pain and suffering. Moreover, Sara suffered burns inflicted by direct contact with hot objects. One particularly distressing injury was an iron burn on her buttocks, alongside scalding injuries on her ankles. Medical experts testified that these burns were caused by direct, deliberate contact with heated surfaces, such as a hot iron being pressed against her skin. These injuries were not accidental but part of a calculated effort to hurt and torment her. The cruelty of these acts showed a cold and deliberate intent to inflict as much pain as possible on a defenseless child. The prosecution emphasized how the abuse was hidden from the outside world through careful concealment. Sara was reportedly forced to wear a hijab to school, not for cultural or religious reasons, but to cover the bruises and injuries on her face and neck. This hijab, which should have been a symbol of her dignity and identity, was twisted into a means of hiding the horror she endured. It prevented teachers, friends, and anyone else from seeing the visible evidence of her trauma, keeping her isolated and ensuring that her cries for help remained unheard. This concealment was part of a broader effort to isolate Sara from anyone who might have intervened to help her. Further highlighting the cold detachment of her abusers, the prosecution presented CCTV footage showing the family at Heathrow Airport, calmly boarding a flight shortly before Sara's death was discovered. The footage captured Irfan Sharif, Bainash Batul, and other family members moving through the airport with unnerving composure. Their faces showed no emotion, no grief, no urgency, no sign that they had just left behind the lifeless body of a young girl. This stark detachment highlighted their intention to flee, abandoning Sara without even a hint of remorse. The footage was a chilling reminder of how far they were willing to go to evade responsibility, revealing a deeply unsettling lack of humanity from those who should have protected her. The defendants in the case of Sara Sharif, including Irfan Sharif, Bainash Batul, and Faisal Malik, remained in hiding in Pakistan for approximately 7 weeks following Sara's death in August 2023. During this time, the British government reached out to Pakistani authorities to facilitate the recovery of the fugitives. Pakistani law enforcement responded by conducting multiple raids across suspected locations to arrest them. However, the defendants managed to stay one step ahead, frequently changing locations to evade capture. The tense atmosphere was marked by constant movement and fear of being caught, as the defendants relied on local contacts to stay informed about the raids. Realizing the dire consequences of being apprehended in Pakistan, the defendants grew increasingly anxious. They were aware that the justice system in Pakistan is notoriously slow, full of bureaucratic delays and often fraught with corruption. If caught, they faced the possibility of being embroiled in an indefinite trial process, where proceedings could stretch on for years, possibly even the rest of their lives. The thought of being trapped in a legal limbo, with no clear resolution in sight, made them desperate to leave the country. In light of these concerns, the group secretly decided to return to the UK, where they believed the judicial process, although harsh, would at least be more predictable and timely.
Sara's death was an incident. All of our family members have gone into hiding as everyone is scared for their safety. No one is leaving the house. The groceries have run out and there is no food for the kids. We are willing to cooperate with the UK authorities and fight our case in court.
They made careful plans to avoid detection, booking their tickets in secrecy. Sialkot Airport, a relatively private airport, was chosen for their departure because it offered less scrutiny and oversight from Pakistani authorities compared to larger international airports. The defendants knew that this airport's operational privacy would work to their advantage, reducing the likelihood of interference by law enforcement. In their haste to leave, they made the decision to leave their children behind in Pakistan, under the care of their grandfather. This decision underscored their focus on self-preservation above all else. Later, Pakistani authorities discovered the children during their search for the fugitives. The children were subsequently taken into custody and placed under the care of child support services, adding another layer of tragedy to an already devastating situation. The image of these young children, left behind without their parents, symbolized the profound neglect and abandonment that had characterized their lives. The media attention surrounding Sara Sharif's death intensified during this period, with the story being covered extensively in both British and international media. This relentless coverage brought significant public scrutiny, further complicating the defendants' ability to remain in hiding. Reports of the ongoing raids and the authorities' pursuit of Irfan and his associates added to the pressure they faced, ultimately leading them to decide that returning to the UK was their only viable option. They understood that the longer they stayed hidden, the more challenging it would become to avoid detection, especially with the mounting international pressure to bring them to justice. On September 12, 2023, reports indicated that they were located in Pakistan and were preparing to leave for Dubai. On September 13, 2023, they boarded an Emirates flight from Sialkot, Pakistan, via Dubai to return to the UK. Upon arrival at Gatwick Airport later that day, they were arrested by UK authorities. The defendants Irfan Sharif, Bainash Batul, and Faisal Malik were boarding a flight back to the UK from Dubai when they were apprehended by police. Video footage captured the moment they were detained on the plane, with Batul reportedly saying, "I think you're looking for us," as officers approached. The arrest followed an extensive investigation involving UK authorities, including Interpol and the National Crime Agency, which was initiated after Sara's body was discovered in their home in Woking, Surrey, on August 10, 2023. Following the discovery of Sara's body and the subsequent investigation, Irfan Sharif, his partner Bainash Batul, Sara's stepmother, and Faisal Malik, Sara's uncle, were charged with murder on September 15, 2023. The charges came after an extensive investigation, during which the authorities collected various pieces of evidence, including text messages, witness statements, and confessions. All three defendants denied the charges, maintaining their innocence even as the evidence mounted against them. As of November 2024, Irfan Sharif, Bainash Batul, and Faisal Malik have been in custody for approximately 14 months. Their trial is currently underway at the Old Bailey in London, a court known for handling some of the most serious criminal cases in the country. The trial began on October 7, 2024, and is projected to span several weeks, with an expected conclusion around December 13, 2024. During the trial, significant details from Irfan's confession came to light, including his admission that physical punishment had ultimately led to Sara's death. Irfan claimed that he did not intend to cause fatal harm but lost control during a moment of frustration. His defense team argued that he had made this confession under duress, placing most of the blame on Batul, suggesting that she was primarily responsible for Sara's death. This blame shifting created tension in the courtroom, with each defendant attempting to mitigate their own culpability. Batul's defense team forcefully rejected Irfan's claims, portraying him as a domineering and abusive figure who exercised coercive control over both Batul and Sara. Evidence presented in court included a series of text messages between Batul and her sister, where Batul expressed her desperation and feeling of being trapped in an abusive relationship with Irfan. She described her fears and her desire to escape, portraying herself as both a victim and a reluctant participant in the household dynamics. This evidence suggested that Batul was emotionally manipulated, adding complexity to her role in the events leading up to Sara's death. On the day of Sara's death, Batul was present in the house and reportedly gave conflicting explanations regarding how Sara had sustained her injuries. After Sara's death, Batul made several phone calls to her family, pleading for support during what she described as an overwhelming crisis. However, her family reportedly refused to assist, further isolating her and compounding her stress. This added to the portrayal of Batul as both a perpetrator and a victim, caught between her own struggles and her failure to protect Sara. All three defendants, Irfan Sharif, Bainash Batul, and Faisal Malik, faced severe accusations, including the murder of Sara Sharif and charges of causing or allowing the death of a child. Despite the overwhelming evidence, all three have pleaded not guilty. The trial has been emotionally charged, with testimonies painting a disturbing picture of the events leading up to Sara's tragic death. During the trial, Irfan admitted to taking full responsibility for Sara's death, but insisted that he had no intention of killing her. This statement, delivered without emotion, struck a chilling note in the courtroom, underscoring his inability to comprehend the gravity of his actions. As the trial continues, the focus remains on unraveling the roles each defendant played in Sara's death. The defense has attempted to sow doubt by shifting blame, with each party denying full responsibility. However, the prosecution remains steadfast, underscoring the collective responsibility of Irfan, Batul, and Faisal for Sara's untimely death. Public interest in the trial has grown, with media coverage highlighting each new revelation and a growing call for justice for Sara, a young life taken too soon by those who should have protected her. Sara Sharif's biological mother, Olga Sharif, expressed profound grief and heartbreak in response to her daughter's tragic death. In the days following the discovery of Sara's body, Olga provided heart-wrenching insight into her emotional turmoil and the devastating impact of the loss. She described in detail the traumatic experience of identifying her daughter's body in the mortuary, stating that Sara was almost unrecognizable due to the extensive injuries she had sustained. Olga recalled that one of Sara's cheeks was severely swollen while the other side was deeply bruised, a haunting image that has continued to torment her. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can see what my baby looked like. This memory has left an indelible scar on her heart. After separating from Irfan Sharif in 2015, Olga was granted custody of Sara and her older brother, a time when she hoped to rebuild a safe and nurturing environment for her children. However, in 2019, a family court ruled that the children should live with their father, a decision that Olga fought against. She mentioned that while she initially maintained equal rights to see her children, it gradually became increasingly difficult over time. She suggested that her ability to protect them was systematically eroded as Irfan restricted her access, creating barriers to her involvement in their lives. This gradual loss of contact left Olga feeling helpless, knowing that her children were beyond her reach and potentially in harm's way. In a deeply emotional interview on Polish television, Olga shared her anguish and the overwhelming sense of loss she felt after learning about Sara's death. She spoke about the pain of knowing that her daughter had suffered, the disbelief that such a tragedy could happen, and the crushing weight of realizing that she could not be there to protect her. Her emotional responses underscored the deep bond she had with her daughter, describing Sara as a joyful child who had been full of life before being taken away from her. Olga's sorrow was palpable as she spoke, her voice breaking as she recalled Sara's laughter, and the dreams she once had for her daughter. The sense of powerlessness and regret was overwhelming, as Olga grappled with the knowledge that her worst fears had come true. Olga's statements also reflected a profound desire for justice and accountability. She openly questioned how the systems meant to protect her daughter had failed so utterly. While she did not make specific demands for retribution, her words made it clear that she wanted answers. Answers about what exactly happened to Sara during the years she was living with her father and stepmother, and why no one intervened despite clear signs of abuse. Olga expressed her hope that the ongoing trial would bring some form of justice for Sara and ensure that those responsible for her suffering were held accountable. Olga Sharif's responses illustrated not only a mother's profound sorrow, but also the complexities and failures of custody and child welfare issues that ultimately left Sara vulnerable to harm. Her grief was compounded by the traumatic memories associated with identifying her daughter's battered body, a moment that underscored the tragic consequences of domestic abuse and systemic failures within the family structure. Olga's heartbreak serves as a sobering reminder of the real human cost when the safety nets intended to protect children fail, leaving them defenseless against the very people meant to care for them. As the trial continues, we are left with a poignant reminder of the cost of systemic failures. Olga's story is one of heartbreak, but it is also one of hope, for a future where no child has to endure the suffering that Sara did. This case is not just about justice for Sara. It is about the changes we need to make as a society to protect our most vulnerable. The tragedy of Sara's life and the pursuit of justice now stand as a stark plea for accountability, a call to confront the inadequacies in child protection systems. We must ensure that no other child faces such a cruel fate, that no other mother must suffer as Olga has, and that the cracks in our systems are mended before more lives are lost. The hope is that through this painful journey, the voices of those who have been silenced are finally heard, and the lessons learned lead to real and lasting change.